overall objective, Pak Lim. The series will be relating to how we support the disability caucus in a COP, because now Menka, the disability groups still striving for the acceptance, our existence in the COPs. Even we have been there for a long time. I mean, our colleagues from various region has already there, but the acknowledgement is not coming yet until now. So these three series will try how the Southeast region or Asia region promote and also encourage through the recommendation, maybe something like that, and hopefully in the COP 30 there will be such as like a commitment, maybe. We don't know, but it is really important that you are here, Menka, because actually the first series we would like to learn how disability caucus process in the COPs. Oh, sorry, women caucus process in the COP. Of course, you are more seniors than us. That is why we would like to learn more from all of you, especially from the women caucus. That's the background of our discussion today, Pak Lim. And also, Mr. Lim Poitiak is our chair here. Menka, Jenny is already know, and also Ibu Maria Un. Okay. So actually, today we got around 40 participants that's already in the list. So we will wait for a while if you are not. Okay, so I think how many persons has already in the room, Wika?
Okay, Bulani. So it's about maybe 6 to 10.
6 to 10.
Yeah. Can we wait for another 5 minutes, Bu?
Yeah. I'm offered to you, Wika, and then maybe if you have some notes for Pak Lim as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bulani. I'm greeting all the participants who are coming now on the Google Meet, because there are maybe 3 to 5 minutes until 1 p.m. So we will wait for another moment until more people come. But mostly we have all the speakers coming except Miss Nandar from Myanmar. She's not here yet. Hi, Pak Lim, Menka. Can we proceed the discussion now?
Sure, yeah, we can
Yes,
proceed.
go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Wiki, you're on mute if you're speaking to us.
Excuse me. Okay, thank you, Menka. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wiki Devi Arianti. I am the program manager of the ASEAN Disability Forum. And thank you very much for attending this discussion. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to the public discussion on disability, gender, and climate change series. This is the series 1, and the topic is gender, disability, and social inclusion in climate change issues towards COP30 for the ADF first series public discussion virtually. So this is fully organized by the ASEAN Disability Forum and supported by the Global Green Grants Fund. I hope you will have a fruitful discussion, but before that, please turn off your mobile phones and please fill in the attendance list that will be attached in the board checks. We will provide the sign language interpreters for the deaf friends. And I would like also to invite the organizing committee to make our sign interpreters as a spotlight, so it is easy to see by our deaf friends. Another alternative, please also click the CC button. It is facilitated by the Google Meet, so you can use it as the closed caption for easy and then understandable facilitation by the Google Meet. We also encourage all attendees, speakers, and facilitators to speak in moderate pace and in simple terminology, so everyone will understand easily and easily follow all the discussions process. If any difficulties or obstacles, please convey them through the chat box, so we will provide any assistance options from the organizing committee. Before starting, I would like to say Happy Earth Day 2025. This is the Earth Day, 22 April 2025. The ASEAN Disability Forum also celebrating this day as our part of climate change campaign. So before we proceed to the discussion today, let's watch the ASEAN Disability Forum video containing of the Earth Day greetings from the representatives of OPDs, or Organization of Persons with Disabilities in ASEAN, during the Global Disability Summit in Germany on 1 to 2 April. Okay, let's check it out together. Wait a moment, please.
We came to the Global Disability Summit 2025 in Berlin.
To promote international initiative achieve disability inclusion throughout the world.
Our vision is person with disability, including women, children, and underrepresented groups, to have equal access to civil, political, social, economical, and cultural rights,
So that there will be no barrier, hinder for person with disability to fully participate in society.
We call the government around the world to eliminate obstacles for people with disabilities during times of danger, like climate change, natural disaster, and access to relief or recovery support. It is important to develop climate change response and humanitarian action plan inclusive of and accessible to persons with disabilities.
People with disability and their representative organization should be actively involved in program planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of the climate change policies.
On this Earth Day, let's unite to preserve and cherish the planet we call our home.
Let's celebrate our beautiful planet and protect it for our future generation.
Happy Earth Day 2025.
Happy Earth Day.
Thank you, everyone. It's a lovely video, and there are so many people featured in the video. They are also attending here. So let me move on to the next session. Let us begin the discussion now by welcoming Bapak Lim Poitiak as the chairman of the ASEAN Disability Forum to give the opening remarks. So the time is yours, Pak Lim.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you and welcome to this virtual public discussion in disability, gender, and climate change towards COP30. We appreciate very much all of you for joining us today from your home, offices around the ASEAN region. As you already know, the ASEAN Disability Forum, or ADF in short, is a regional platform dedicated to mainstreaming the rights and inclusion of persons with disabilities in ASEAN. An important and growing global concern is the inclusion of persons with disability in climate change. Through this public discussion, ADF seeks to facilitate a disability-inclusive dialogue among key stakeholders, including OPDs, or Organization of Persons with Disabilities, gender-focused organizations, policymakers, and climate actors, to strengthen advocacy efforts towards COP30. The discussion will be the first of a three-part series to share lived experiences, identify systemic challenges, and formulate recommendations for inclusive and just climate policies at the national and regional levels. From this program, we hope to provide a platform for OPDs and gender-focused organizations to share gender disability and social concern perspectives on climate change challenges. At the end of this series of discussions, ADF will work on drafting an ASEAN action plan or recommendation through the Disability Caucus in COP30, so that the platform can be inclusive for gender, disability, and other social groups such as indigenous people. I want to thank the three speakers and our facilitator for focusing our thoughts on this very important issue. I wish you all a very fruitful discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Lim, for the opening remarks. Without further ado, I will move on to the panel discussion with the three resources or speakers who are presenting today. But before that, I would like to invite Ms. Menka Gondan, the Program Director of ASEAN Pacific Resources and Research Center for Women, or ARO, to be the facilitator in this event. Welcome, Ms. Menka.
Thank you, Wike.
Okay, so please, the organizing committee, could you please spotlight Ms. Menka or pin her during this session? We will give the time for Ms. Menka to be the facilitator during 45 minutes, and each speaker has 10 minutes to deliver their materials. I will have for the share screen together with the organizing committee. So the time is yours, Ms. Menka. Thank you.
Thank you, Wike. Thank you so much. And thank you to the ASEAN Disability Forum for inviting me to facilitate this panel discussion today. And also a happy Earth Day to you all. I'm excited to be here as part of a broader range of work that AERO does in the intersection of both disability rights and climate justice on the intersection of sexual and reproductive health and rights. Today, just before we go on to the discussion with the panelists, the three esteemed panelists we have, I'd like to just set the scene a bit on where we are. And, there's been some words around context, but I'd just like to situate us in terms of the context and then inviting the speakers from different countries, Myanmar, Philippines, and Indonesia, to speak to us today. In the ASEAN region, we have increasingly experienced the devastating impacts of climate change, which has included rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and environmental degradation. These challenges have disproportionately affected particular communities, such as persons with disabilities, gender minorities, women and girls, you name it. And these are the population groups that we see who often face systemic barriers in accessing climate resilience strategies, disaster preparedness programs, and sustainable development initiatives. Whilst organizations of people with disability and gender advocacy groups have been at the forefront of advocating for inclusive climate policies that recognize the intersectionality of disability, gender, and climate justice, we still see gaps in participation of people with disabilities, women, girls, and gender minority groups within decision-making spaces in the UNFCCC or the United Nations Convention on Climate Change frameworks or the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. And as was pointed out, within the COP space, it's important to understand that there are constituencies like the disability constituency, the women and gender constituency, the youth constituency, the indigenous peoples constituency that understand that work with these different groups, and as people with disabilities, we may belong to different we can represent ourselves in these different intersections, and have our voices heard in these different spaces. So I like the fact that there will be an action plan after these 3 series to go into the disability rights focus at COP30. And for those of you who are not familiar, COP30 will be happening in Belém in Brazil from 11 to 22nd November. And another important juncture that we have at COP30 is the review of the Gender Action Plan, of which women with disabilities, people with disabilities is a important group to be highlighted within the Lima work program and the Gender Action Plan. So with those words, I would love to move to giving the floor to our first speaker today, and her name is Jennifer Garcia. Jennifer is a dedicated advocate for persons with disabilities, and she has worked with the Department of Social Welfare and Development. She comes with a social work background, and she's also currently pursuing her master's degree in social work. She is the head of the Persons with Disability Affairs in the Office of Office of the Social Welfare in Philippines, and then she also works with the National Council on Disability on various issues around persons with disability. Jennifer, with all her experience that she has had in this area of work within Philippines and within the ASEAN region, will be speaking to us today on inclusive climate change policies and actions for women with disabilities in the Philippines. Jennifer, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes for your presentation today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Menka, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to thank the Asia Disability Forum for inviting us, the ADF Philippines, to be one of the speakers or sharers on this very important, very relevant topic, which is the public discussion on disability, gender, and climate change, gender disability and social inclusion, climate change issues towards the COP30. So, for today, I am using a backdrop in blue color, and that actually this is the backdrop of the event itself with the photos of the three speakers. Uh, you might get confused. My picture there was just I'm still slim, but for now I think I get doubled. So well, just a little description and to break the afternoons because this time it's very sleepy time here in our place. So I hope you will learn with my sharing, and I hope this will also contribute with the action plan or the recommendations that we're going to draft in support or to propose or in proposing the CO to the COP30 in Brazil in November. So, Wika, can you please share? There it goes. So the title of my topic is Inclusive Climate Change Policies and Actions for Women with Disabilities in the Philippines. It is an overview of policies and also the barriers and collaborative efforts here in our country. Next, please. Okay, next. Vika. The third slide. Thank you. So you might wonder why Philippines is one of the speakers today. So I think one of the reasons is that our country is the most vulnerable to climate change, facing frequent typhoons, floods, and other extreme weather events. And among the most affected are marginalized groups, especially the women with disabilities who experience compounded vulnerabilities. Can you see my presentation? Can you please do a thumbs up if you can see it?
No, we can't see the presentation. It has disappeared.
All right. All right. Do you want me to share it? I can do it. Hold on. Let me.
I'm sorry for the inconvenience, James. Would you like to present it yourself?
Yeah, I will.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay. Sorry, the technicalities. Sorry about this. Okay. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah, it's visible now. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, so the objective of my presentation for today is to look on the gender inclusive climate change policies and actions in the Philippines with an emphasis on those targeting women with disabilities. At the same time, to identify the critical hurdles to implementing inclusive climate policies for women with disabilities, because sometimes, there are many policies, but the challenges there is how are they implementing it. Another objective of this presentation is to explore the collaboration among the government, the organizations of persons with disabilities, and other stakeholders in climate change related activities. So for the gender inclusive climate change policies in the Philippines, so we have actually some of them. And number one is the Republic Act number 9729, the Climate Change Act of 2009. This is already, I think, a decade act, which is the focus of this act is to establish the climate change. It establishes the Climate Change Commission and promotes the integration of climate change concerns into national policies. It also focused on gender mainstreaming as a key element, though it lacks direct mention of person with disabilities. It only says that the word mainstreaming was there in this particular act, and this was in 2009. Another is the National Framework Strategy on Climate Change in 2010. Actually, these are very old frameworks, but I think it has contributed a lot on what are the initiatives of the government right now here in the Philippines for climate change for a person with disability or women with disability. So this National Framework Strategy on Climate Change set out the national guidelines for climate change action. It also incorporates the gender-sensitive approaches, though more attention is needed for women with disabilities. So it's not yet really focused on women with disabilities. So another policy is that the Philippine Development Plan, the 2017 to 2022. Actually, for today, we have already the Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. However, I choose this one because this is the start. This is the first. This is the plan wherein it emphasizes the women's empowerment and the inclusion of persons with disabilities in national development programs. It is within this plan that the government pay more attention or give more attention with the needs of persons with disabilities in terms of climate change. Another thing is that it recognizes the importance of inclusive climate action. However, concrete measures targeting the women with disabilities is still limited. So another policy is, of course, the Magna Carta for Persons with Disabilities, or the Republic Act 7277. This act guarantees the rights of persons with disabilities, setting a foundation for disability inclusion. Another is, however, it does not explicitly address the climate change impacts, but supports disability inclusive policies in general. So what I am sharing to you right now is not really to please our our viewers or our participants with the policies in the Philippines. We have our policies, but I think there's also a limitation. That is why some improvement has been done nowadays, especially now this year, as of this time, right? Maybe. Another is the gender and development programs of the local level. Our government, the Philippines, was able to establish a policy wherein the local government units or the municipalities, the cities, are mandated to allocate the 5% of their budget to gender and development initiatives. So some LGUs also are using these funds for climate-related programs focusing on gender equality and the inclusions with persons with disabilities. This is really a very, for us, I think this is a very big amount of budget for climate change. However, this is still for the what do you call this? This budget is for gender and development initiatives. So wherein the person with disabilities are included in this particular endeavor. Another policy is that, of course, the international treaty and frameworks. We have the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the ASEAN Enabling Master Plan 2025. So what are the policies specifically for women with disabilities? So this one, number one, is the Women's Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Framework. So it emphasizes the need for disaster resilience program that consider the gender vulnerabilities of women. Some programs includes training for women, especially those with disabilities, on disaster preparedness and emergency response. So it is a framework wherein women with disabilities were given an opportunity for training, capability building activities for disaster preparedness. So another is that the National Council on Disability Affairs, they are the one who are advocating for the rights of person with disability, including the women with disabilities, in the context of climate change. And this is in partnership also with the Organization of Women with Disabilities here in our country. So the National Council on Disabilities also works with other government agencies and stakeholders to ensure that disaster response plans consider the specific needs of women with disabilities. By the way, the National Council on Disability, its mandate is to formulate policies. So, and this is in partnership with the other national agencies of our, or in our, of our government here in our country. Another one is the Gender Equity, Disability, and Social Inclusion, which, or the GEDC. Before, it's just the initiative is the Gender and Development Program, but as of this time, it has been improved. It is now called the GEDC, wherein disability is specifically mentioned to be given priority in terms of accessing the budget or the programs for the gender and development. It is an integrated approach that focuses on promoting equity and inclusion across multiple dimensions of marginalization, including gender, disability, and social status, such as age, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status. Next, so what are the critical hurdles in implementing inclusive climate change policies? As I mentioned a while ago, many of us, even in, I believe in your country, we have already our policies, but there are some challenges in implementing these specific policies. So number one is the lack of disability inclusive data. So insufficient disaggregation of climate vulnerability data by disability status, preventing a clear and understanding of how climate change impacts the women with disabilities. Since I am immersed in the grassroots, I believe at the national level there are some organizations of persons with disability, with the support of the international organizations, or the organizations providing budget or funding for the project on gathering data. However, it's just it's not really selected, but for some, but not for everyone. I think it would be better if all of the places in our country would be having a massive disability data gathering. But as of today, we have our data wherein in the context of getting the vulnerability, there is none yet. But in terms of the needs for the medical needs, for example, the categories of disability, we do have. But in terms of the vulnerability to climate change, I think we don't have it still here. So hopefully in the future there is. So next is the accessibility issue. So physical and communication barriers. Sorry about that. Our election is getting near, so there are, if you can hear the sound. So physical and communication barriers to accessing climate change related information, services, and shelters. So there is an accessibility issue on that. And at the same time, the evacuation centers, for example, are often not fully accessible to persons with disabilities. Another hurdle on that also is that the availability of sign language interpreters and the technical know-how of the people who are managing the evacuation centers on how to care or how to guide, or to know that they are not yet really aware on the dynamics of the persons with disabilities, particularly the women with disabilities. So that's it. That's part of the accessibility issues. Next is the limited participation of women with disabilities in decision making. Here in our country, although we have so many policies already, we have a lot of women empowerment activities and initiatives, strategies, innovations, but still the women with disabilities are often excluded from the climate change policy making, so leaving their voices unheard in critical decision-making spaces. Basically, here in our place, although there are organizations of women with disabilities, there are clustered already, from north to south of the Philippines. However, I think there should the women with disability group or organization should be organized up to the village level, barangay level, so that they will be able to know or be able to be aware on these initiatives, particularly, especially about this innovations or strategies on climate change. Yeah.
Jennifer, we are over the 10 minutes, so I'll give you another conclude. Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, I'll just do it fast. Just 2 minutes. Is it okay? 2 minutes. Okay. Another is the inadequate resources for inclusive programs. While there are policies in place, financial and human resources allocated for disability inclusive climate actions are often insufficient. Another is the cultural and gender norms. So traditional gender roles can limit the participation of women, especially those with disabilities, in climate adaptations efforts. So stereotypes and stigma surrounding women with disabilities hinder their inclusion in disaster management and climate resilience program. They thought like women are weak, so men are strong. So I think that's a cultural and gender norms. Okay, next. What are the collaborations across governments, OPDs, and stakeholders? So number one, the government agencies and Climate Change Commission. The CCC is central to the country's climate change efforts. It works with various stakeholders to create policies that include gender responsive and disability sensitive actions. The involvement of OPDs and women's groups ensures the integration of disability and gender considerations, because there are some organizations of persons with disability, particularly the women group, are also actively involved. Next is the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. The NDRRMC ensures that disaster response plans are inclusive for persons with disabilities. So they also collaborate with the local government units, OPDs, and CSOs to improve accessibility and participation in disaster risk management programs. Another is the collaboration at the international organization and development partners. For example, the UNDP and the other international organizations provide technical support, research, and funding for inclusive climate initiatives. So these organizations helps raise awareness about the specific needs of women with disabilities and support the implementation of inclusive policies. Next to that, with this challenges and with the policies, I think there's are some recommendations that should be considered in drafting drafting our recommendations to the COP30. Yeah. Number one is to strengthen the data collection and analysis. Disaggregate climate vulnerability data by gender and disability to better understand the specific needs of women with disabilities in climate change adaptation and mitigation. Use the data to inform policies and ensure that resources are allocated where they are most needed. So let us also improve accessibility to climate information. Another is increase the funding for disability inclusive climate programs and enhance the participation of women with disabilities in decision making and address the cultural and gender norms. And of course, anyway, just to sum up this presentation from me, of course, the Philippines has made important strides in creating gender-sensitive climate policies, but the inclusion of women with disabilities has to be improved. So critical barriers such as insufficient data inaccessibility and cultural norm prevents the full participation of women with disabilities in climate change actions. There is really a need for a stronger collaboration between government agencies, the OPDs, the CSOs, and international stakeholders to ensure that women with disabilities are not left behind. So ways forward to ensure a more inclusive approach to climate change adaptation and mitigation, the government must prioritize the needs of women with disabilities by integrating disability inclusion into climate policies, improving accessibility, and increasing the involvement of women with disabilities in decision making. So a holistic approach that addresses both gender and disability will create more effective and equitable climate solutions for all. So that's all. Thank you. If you want to connect with me, I have a WhatsApp over.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for that input. And definitely, Philippines has been one of the, forerunners when it has come to climate policies in the ASEAN sub-region. And some of the recommendations that you talked about in terms of strengthening data collection and analysis, accessing or making climate information more accessible, having accessible funding, as well as enhancing the participation of women with disabilities in the climate sort of work. Okay, I have done something to my screen, which I need to figure out first. Okay, so we will now move on to our next speaker, and her name is Nandar. Nandar, you are on the call, right?
Yes, I'm
okay.
here.
Hi. Right, so let me introduce you to Nandar. Nandar is the consultant at UNICEF, and she also has studied at the University of Amsterdam and is also part of the Amsterdam Institute for Social Science. And she's also a researcher for the ADF, working on the study on encouraging social inclusion and disability rights principles on climate change policy in Southeast Asia countries from Myanmar. And so Nandar New U is from Myanmar, and today she will be sharing with us the encouraging social inclusion and disability rights principles on climate change policy in Southeast Asia. Nandar, you have 10 minutes. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. And this is Nandar. And thank you for giving a chance to take back this ADF meeting. Today, I would like to start with a question. Imagine a typhoon or cyclone storm is coming. The warning time is issue, but not only it is only on the radio announcement. If you are hearing difficulty, you cannot be heard. And also, if you apply your hearing difficulty, there is no vibration or flash alert. Also, message, especially for mobility difficulty. As a virtual user, the nearest center is up to stay, and you also left behind. So there is not a theoretically scenario. We also face earthquakes in Myanmar. Thousands of lives were lost, and including many persons with disability who had no accessibility. That's why I'm here to speak. You all have connection in such issues, include the protection of marginalized people particularly for person with disability, women with disability. Next slide, please. Okay, Southeast Asia, our region, one of the next slide, please. Are you okay to share the circle? If not, I can be able to share my circle. I would like to discuss about the the content. So let me share my circle. Okay, it's good. Thank you. The next. Why inclusion is major? Our country thought is Asia, one of the regional countries in that is face a lot of cyclone, typhoon, flood, and including sea level rises. There's no one affected equally. Research shows that up to 4 person with disability are 4 times likely to die in this disaster. And also, they have many systematic dis- to design not include the relief project. In our country, Myanmar, there is no evacuated because of that accessibility issue. Others could not be able to reach the shelter, and also climate policy and disaster plan still rarely mentioned for persons with those disabilities. Exactly. It is also very difficult to get the climate justice. We have recognized who have legend behind. We have a critical moment in the past to get over a trend of 200 major disaster, at least in the 30% increase from the previous decade. Now, currently we have climate treated Boston and also typhoon, struggle, dries are longer and sea level risen. There's not a climate impact. There's an insect as written. They also multiply existing in equal, especially in Cambodia, where they face a lot of liver disaster. Food aids are also distributed in those liver-based programs. But also with intellectual disability, they are excluded because of those social protection land lack of in those areas. Next slide, please. Here, I would like to say about the ASEAN framework with 3 terms. The first term is transparency. Let's assess next slide, please. Hello.
Yes, Nanda, you are audible.
Yeah. Then climate action framework. Climate action framework mentioned 3 terms. The first term is transparency. We do assess the current status of action. It action is not sufficient to identify the various of lack of policy coordination. The second term is transformation that to address those failures to integrate the strategies and trade-offs, external factors, especially the political and economic, and also COVID pandemic. The third is vision to develop the ASEAN vision for climate action. That is strong, inside strong, the transparency and also transformative terror. This likely on this framework ASEAN developed a strong frame to commit resilient, inclusion, and right. But there's still a lot of gap between the policy commitment and implementation. For instance, our country new policy is not included in 4 out of 10 ASEAN countries mentioned vulnerable groups in the sun, especially in terms of persons with disability. Especially in Myanmar, our disaster risk reduction card embedded the accessible standard of shelter that is very important in the whatever included. This likely for the principle and also climate policy. The list also include how social inclusion and how disabled we are. Social inclusion is not only for the person with disability, it is for all inclusion, right, for all people, not only marginalizing, right, for the people. So policy here is making the principle to inclusive for climate policy for the participation, gender minority, and also other gender groups to make sure accessibility climate action that is allocated for all institutional infrastructure and also include only one time for education. And most of the implementation needs to be aligned with the UNCRPD and SDG and also the general ASEAN framework that need to be transitional and also ethnicity, gender and disability to make sure that sustainability issues for the institution, inclusion and pilot projects for all disability tasks need to be included. This likely for those situations, we have a lot of implementation and we have a lot of principle on social inclusion and disability work. I also mentioned the social inclusion is improving the kind of individual and to part in our communities, in our society. It's important and access opportunity together with the first class of their gender, their race, their socioeconomic status. And we are person with disability, so we need to make sure the legal and more principle to treat with dignity and equality to access all the service and also infrastructure. These rights are absolutely encouraging to the UNCRPD, SDG, and also ASEAN and declaration framework. It's like this. In this framework, we would like to highlight the sustainable development goal training, testing that makes sure the inequality we reduce inequality and urgent action competing in the climate change and its impact on those UNCRPD and sustainable development goal SDG. We as an ambulance master plan for mainstreaming the right of the community pillar that is for combating the climate inequality for person with disability. Next slide, please. And in those situations, we have a lot of barriers to emergency communication and learn system. Most of the developing countries have only when time, especially sign language, braille, and particular, there is lack of accessible for all emergency person and lack of accessibility infrastructure, especially for accommodation for person with mobility, future, and cognitive in the sector transportation and bus facility. First, the next barrier is increased risk due to the care system and also the system. We are planning climate in our country. We're not offering consulted person with disability and obesity to be design and emergency performance drills. That makes a lot of trouble in the accessible exit and lack of the faster can make a lot of caners in aqueous system. Next slide, please.
Nander, you are over your 10 minutes. I'll give you another 5 minutes to wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you. So sorry, only two minutes. I will finish. So good practice in the opportunity is in our strategy have a lot of good practice in included only one system for the sign language interpreter virtual and lesson. For example, if collecting service integrated in sign language into the emergency workplace and community-based fund adaptation. In Finland, community disaster committee now include DPO representatives who will help to identify the accessibility and also inclusion work. And the last opportunity is inclusive plan model that is also used to connect international Cambodia would enhance local capacity and inclusive play. So we need to make sure that ASEAN framework was permitting people more resilient in 2050. The most important of the cooperation is the rules of the regional cooperation as an potential cooperation with climate government and also the cross-country collaboration, adaptation, and marginalization. Currently, I think coordination center and humanitarian international assistance center can support the inclusive emergency coordination across borders. So it's really important to include human harmonizing national climate law and climate policy. So we would like to do the next slide, please. We would like to do the recommendation for all of the system management in disability, including climate-related policy development in disability, design and also integrated data. Others figure also mentioned that we need to collect and analyze data public.
Nanda, just give me a moment. For whoever's doing the slides, Nanda is on the recommendation slide. You're on the recommendation slide, right?
Yes, I'm in recommendation slide.
Yeah. Can you please move to the next? No, not this one. The recommendation slide. She's covered this. Not this.
I also see this slide.
Yes. Yeah. This here. So yeah, go ahead, Nanda. Over to you.
Sorry. The next recommendation is for the allocation budget. In our country, we have no allocated budget. In most of the websites, and give the recommendation that at least 10% of the PR budget needs to go for the person with disability accessibility budget. That is really important for us, for implementation and also collaboration and infrastructure. Satellite review or to contact with the event as a candidate in the planning and also implementation process. This is really important for capacity build and also other classes. So the last recommendation is investing in infrastructure technology. We need to prioritize accessibility, early warning system, set a design and evaluate bounding and renew energy access for accessibility issues. Next slide, please. So we would like to work as our presentation, including certain from resilient and also justice. Inclusive policy doesn't benefit for not only for person with disability but also for everyone in time of the crisis. And we need to make sure and include that disability rights is the central to Southeast Asia climate response to ignore disability. Right? Reinforce that make an equality million of people at risk in inclusion possible. So inclusion must be the core principle of the world. And we make sure we're nothing about us without us for all policy designing and implementation process. Most of the effect that inclusion is certain leadership not only symbolize in situation. Thank you for giving a chance to present about it.
Thank you so much, Nanda. It was great having you today to present with us. And one of the key takeaways that she highlighted today that I wanted to iterate for you all was the fact that climate action must reflect equity, justice, and human rights principles. And also, she brought to the fore the recent Myanmar earthquake, which demonstrated the absence of disability-friendly post-disaster facilities, including disability-friendly evacuation plans, for earthquakes or for any other emergencies for that matter. So thank you so much for those recommendations that you also gave us today. I also saw that Wike has popped in the presentations for all our speakers today on the chat. So you can go and download that from the Google Drive link that has just been shared in the chat. And also just a friendly reminder, if you have not yet filled your attendance form, please do so, and you will find the link for that also in the chat box. Now, I'll move on to the last speaker for today, but it's certainly not the least. I would like to invite Maria Un, or Mia, as most of us know her as, who's the chairperson of the Indonesian Women with Disabilities Association of South Sulawesi Province in Indonesia. She actively advocates for the rights of women with disabilities and also people with disabilities from indigenous communities in South Sulawesi. So Mia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Minka. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Is my voice clear enough, Mbak Wika and the participants?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I would like to thank you very much to ADF for inviting me. On behalf of our organization, HWDI South Sulawesi, to share about the research that we conducted in 2 indigenous communities in South Sulawesi in early 2020. Mbak Wika, could you please to help me with share screen?
Yeah, it's done, Bu.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, actually, I'm not the right person to share the report today, as I'm not a part of the researcher team. I only support the team as chairperson of the organization to conduct the research to support our organization advocacy work. And I hope that what I am going to present today, it will be contribute to ADF in preparing for COP30. Okay, so why did HWDI conduct this research? Our organization, with the support from DRF, began to run programs for indigenous people with disabilities, especially women disabilities, since 2017. And we always go through data collection and surveys to capture the social life of people with disabilities in indigenous communities. And from this process, we found that the condition of indigenous women with disabilities in 2 districts, namely Maros and Sidrap Regency, is almost the same. So stigma and discrimination against indigenous people with disabilities, especially women, are very high. And also indigenous women with disabilities experience various obstacles, such as the lack of knowledge of the rights of persons with disabilities, as a women, as an indigenous people, and they are vulnerable to become victims of gender-based violence. And okay, next. Yeah, indigenous people with disabilities, especially women, are among the groups that neglected in various forms of participation when we are talking about natural resources management. While the daily lives of people with disabilities are highly dependent on natural resources for gardening, farming, and livestock as a livelihood. And this situation actually connected with external obstacles such as the perspective of society, stakeholders, including indigenous leaders who are still biased about disability, the perspective of society that still underestimates people with disabilities. Secondly, the patriarchal culture that is still very strong in indigenous communities. And the third, indigenous women with disabilities have never been involved in the decision-making process, either at the indigenous institutional level or at the village government level. We will find this problem when we first visit and hold initial discussion with indigenous leaders or the village government. There are no women with disabilities present. And the fourth, custom and culture that do not provide equal opportunities and equality for indigenous people with disabilities. They have not been involved in decision-making process related to customs or not been involved in the rituals that conducted in indigenous communities. And one of the important barriers or big barriers is geographical barriers. The distance of the residential is very far from the center of village government, from public service center, and also contributed with damaged road access, and it is not supported by the provision of public transportation. And yes, it's the same as the two speakers before, that lack of accessibility. And also for indigenous women with disabilities, lack of support from parents and family. Even women with disabilities sometimes not allowed by their families or parents to participate in empowerment activities that carried out by institutions such as DPO. And one barrier also is regulatory. There is no policy on indigenous people with disabilities, or if we have existing policies, also do not support indigenous people with disabilities. For example, existing policies on people with disabilities do not include the issue of indigenous people with disabilities, or regional policies on the recognition of indigenous peoples do not include indigenous people with disabilities. And there is no disaggregated data on indigenous people with disabilities. Next. Yes, our objectives, why we conduct this research is because it is hard to find a data regarding participation of persons with disabilities. So through this research, we want to find a data and identify data on the main sources of livelihoods of indigenous people with disabilities, especially women, and to find data on how indigenous people with disabilities participation, especially women, in managing natural resources as a source of livelihoods in indigenous communities, and to find data on how to respond to livelihoods that are adaptive to their natural environment and the specific needs of indigenous people with disabilities in the context of climate change. Next. So for organization, this research then provide data and information about women with disabilities in indigenous communities, and the report becomes a tool for advocacy to stakeholders related to indigenous women with disabilities. While for the stakeholders, research or the report can be a reference for data and information to policy for policy action in the planning and decision-making process, related to women with disabilities and indigenous women with disabilities. The research was conducted by a women's with disability organization, it's WDI, in collaboration with the Indigenous Peoples Alliance of the Archipelago, or known as AMAN South Sulawesi, to strengthen indigenous peoples issue. And we also include the editor for the report was a lecturer from University of Indonesia. And the location of the research that we conducted in indigenous communities that already get program intervention in the form of capacity building related to disability, indigenous issues, and the impacts of climate change. And the participation of the research are individuals and groups of people with disabilities who live collectively as a part of indigenous communities. The research conducted is participatory action research by presenting an international approach of gender and disability. We choose a case study as an approach to gain a deeper understanding of people with disabilities, especially women. The selection of case study in the two indigenous communities was carried out by considering the reason that organization HWDA, which has provided assistance to children, women, and men with disabilities in these two communities. And HWDI or HWDI understand that people with disabilities in the two communities have a strong attachment to natural resources management, as well as having experience of disaster and or being affected by the phenomenon of climate change, with the aim of finding data that can describe the risk of vulnerability, assets owned, and participation in natural resource management. It is hoped that this basic research will be used as a tool for developing policies for the organization and related parties, especially policies related to natural resource management and policies related to climate that are inclusive and involve persons with disabilities, indigenous persons with disabilities. Next slide, conclusion. The research conclusions are described through field findings that gardening, farming, forest plant sales service are the main livelihoods for women and indigenous groups with disabilities in these two indigenous communities. Women with disabilities and indigenous groups with disabilities experiencing various challenges due to the negative impacts of climate change. The educational status of indigenous women with disabilities has not completed elementary school and has never got informal education, either related to livelihoods or the impact of climate change. Indigenous women with disabilities do not have their own means of production, such as equipment, fertilizer, and seeds. They also not yet or do not have independent capital and have never received capital assistance, either from indigenous institution or their village government. And currently, when we conduct the research, there is no specific policy that regulates participation and management of natural resources, as well as climate change anticipation policies for indigenous women with disabilities, either in indigenous institutional and village government level. There has been no special involvement in participation and management of natural resources, and there have been no efforts to anticipate the negative impacts of climate change for indigenous women with disabilities and indigenous groups. Indigenous women with disabilities respond to livelihood obstacles due to the negative impacts of climate change by carrying out adaptive work. Next slide. Recommendation. Yeah, the recommendation we share today is not only or are not only specifically addressed to all levels of government in CIDRAP Regency, the Regency where we conduct the research, but we also provide recommendation to all parties related to the collaboration that needs to be carried out so that there is data available related to the impacts of climate change in various aspects, and also meaningful participation of women with disabilities from vulnerable groups that much more vulnerable to all impacts of climate change, such as Indigenous women with disabilities, women with disabilities in coastal areas, and also in small areas. The recommendation that I want to share today is regarding our research in these two Indigenous communities. We hope that Indigenous institutions must establish written policies governing natural resources for people with disabilities. Second, village institution with policy-making authority must establish regulation on the participation of Indigenous disability group in the community. This regulation should guarantee their access to economic, environmental, and other programs, including the deliberation of village planning and development for people with disabilities. And in the policy-making process, whether related to climate change adaptation efforts or other development initiatives within CIDRAP Regency, Indigenous and village institutions must meaningfully involve both women and men with disabilities at every stage. Initially, the CIDRAP Regency, government, and village institution need to conduct data collection on people with disabilities within the two communities and 4 villages within the research area. And government at all levels, starting from national to village level, need to take concrete steps to provide access to get informal education related to livelihoods and the impact of climate change for Indigenous women with disabilities. Next recommendation, inclusive research on the impacts of climate change, reaching more Indigenous communities and specifically addressing the experience of Indigenous women with disabilities in coastal and islands area requires strong collaboration between academics, research institution, civil society organization, and also DPOs. Next recommendation, all parties, including academics, must involve people with disabilities by providing affirmation to women, Indigenous women with disabilities from coastal and islands area in climate change forums and policy making related to climate change. For this
Mia,
reason,
I will give you 2 more minutes to wrap up,
Yeah.
please. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Minka. For this reason, it is important to build a disability perspective for all parties involved in the research, because in many experience, accessibility and accommodation, reasonable accommodation will become one obstacle for people with disabilities to join any activities, any research regarding their issues. And the last, donors, we hope that there will be many donors to support initiatives taken by DPOs to encourage meaningful participation of persons with disabilities related to climate change, gender equality, and indigeneity. Yeah, that is some point that I will share with all the participants today. And thank you very much for your kind attention. Terima kasih banyak dan selamat siang.
Thank you so much, Mia, for your presentation today. It was really great to hear from you, and especially it's great to hear from communities in doing research at a local level. For a country as vast as Indonesia, it's very important to have research and data collected in the different levels from different communities, etc., to ensure that they different intersectional diversities of these communities are represented in the different data collection and research methods. And like I said in the beginning, you can see two or rather three different intersections at play in this research, which will serve three different constituencies within the COP constituencies. So, you have the research focused on women, research focused on people with disabilities, and also research that is focused on indigenous people. So, a very great tool right there, and an example to be able to advocate in all of these three constituencies within the COP environment. Now, we have all heard from our three esteemed speakers, and we would now invite and open the floor for any questions or comments. We have 15 more minutes in terms of our time allocated today to do that. So if you can please use the hand or raise your hand using the icon on the call, and then based on that I would be able to invite you to give your question or comment. We'll go with the first three people and then we will proceed if time allows in that way. So please do raise your hand if you have a question or comment. If you're not comfortable to speak, you can also put your question or comment in the chat box. You can type that out in the chat box. Okay, so if there are I can see no hands up or no comments on the chat box. So if there's no comments or questions, I would, there is one question in the chat box from Ragil, who is a social researcher at the Oxford University Clinical Research Unit in Jakarta. And the question is for all three speakers. What is your best advice to include women with disabilities in data collection, process, and research? So the question is, what is your best advice to include women with disabilities in data collection, process, and research? It's open for any three of the speakers. So Jennifer, Nandar, or Mia, whichever one of you would like to respond to this question. Thank you.
Yes, may I respond to those questions as a professor? In our country, most of the such very difficult to reach a woman with disabilities because of the numerator lack of capacity and disability family question, especially for the research to for them. The research tool is KIO, FTD, key informant individual, and focus group discussion. One with disability cannot be able to participate to answer those key informant interview. So we try to get the data and the environment of women with disability. Firstly, we need to measure accessibility to answer and to get to understand those questions first. And also the second strategy is for the ethical issue. Ethical issue, we need to measure disability inclusive security. If we ask a question to the person with disability, we need to measure that question make comfortable to answer and we need to measure research ethics and also how we choose of how we express interpret those questions in our research. For example, some of the dialogue is it's coming from founders like last experience of women with disability. If it is interpreted in our research, we need to make sure it is the dignity of those women with disability. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Nanda. Jennifer, I also saw your hand up. Before you go, I just wanted to iterate Nanda's response. She elaborated on two particular strategies. Firstly, having adequate accessibility within the research methodology. Example, if you're doing focus group discussions or key informant interviews, to ensure that you have made adequate provision to allow persons with disabilities and different types of disabilities to participate. And the second strategy she shared was on the ethical issue. And the ethical considerations, we need to ensure that the research or reaching out for the research does not cause any further harm to the respondent, and that the dignity of the persons with disability is upheld through the research process, through making these ethical considerations. Thank you. Over to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, I think one of the strategies also is to use intersectional approaches, wherein if we really wanted to get data from the cross disability of women with disabilities, so it really matters that they can access it. For example, if a deaf woman, for example, doesn't know how to read, so it matters that there should be a sign language interpreter. So it's also important to consider the dynamics of each category of disability. So the questionnaire should also be accessible for them. For example, there should be a braille copy, there should be a soft copy for the blind people. And another thing is to consider also the ethical, informed consent. I think this is very important. For example, there is an option for the for women with disabilities to, for example, she felt like she wanted to exit in the interview or during the survey. I think she has the right to do so. For example, so she doesn't want to finish, the questions. So I think that is part of the what's so-called ethical informed consent. So at the same time, we have to train the data collectors. They should have a disability awareness sensitivity training, so that the way they talk, the way they speak, so they would be avoiding some words which are sometimes they are not aware that they're already discriminating the women with disabilities. So that really matters. And another thing is collaborate with the organizations of women with disabilities, because they are the group who are, who has this close connection with them. So I think they will give you a great help, an opportunity to connect with these women with disabilities if you really want to have a data from them. So that's it for me. The most important is, to conduct the disability awareness sensitivity for those who are collecting the data. And of course, the result of the data should be translated into a policy or a recommendation, including them, of course. You present the result to them, and then because they said nothing about us without us. So with the results, I think they can also formulate, with your help, the researchers can formulate a policy recommendation that would be that would address the issues and concerns as part of the result of the survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that. I completely agree with you in terms of the disability sensitive training for enumerators and for data collectors. For research, it's very important that they, know and are able to distinguish when and where the types of sensitivities that are at play for them. We have a response also to this question from just give me a moment, from Molani as well. And she has stated on the chat that she wanted to share her experience in using women with disability at the data collection process when paying attention on the speakers, information on women with disability situation. She also iterated that we need to start from educating or bringing them to know, meeting people who will be engaged in the process and getting to know each other. So the process of, building trust and getting to know each other is important. And then as well as to make us, a section introduction on how, to interact with various types of persons with disability. Mia, in lieu of time, I will move on. I know there is one question for Jennifer, and I can also see a hand up. So we'll go with a question on the chat box for Jennifer, and then we'll move with the question for the speaker who has their hand up. I hope that's all right with you, Mia. Yeah, you want to add?
Yep, Minka, sorry
yes,
to interrupt. Yes, just to share our experience working in indigenous communities, people with disabilities. Most of women with disabilities lack of knowledge. So I 100% agree with Ibu Maulani that when we are planning to involve women with disabilities in all process in collecting data, the first things that we have to consider is empower women with disabilities, that we are going to involve them regarding data collection, research, and everything. And one of the most important things is knowing what group that we are going to involve them in our work. Indigenous persons with disabilities, many of them, for an example, deaf disability. For the communication, daily communication, they only understand native sign language. So we need to identify what kind of reasonable accommodation need to support women with disabilities, including indigenous women with disabilities. Yeah. Thank you, Minka.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mia. There is a question for Jennifer from the Women's Legal and Human Rights Bureau. Jennifer, I'll request you to keep this brief because we have two more people, wanting to ask their questions or comments. I'll give their comments rather. So the question is, that the Women's Legal and Human Rights Bureau is working with women with disabilities in the Philippines. And one of the common issues they cite is their lack of participation in climate change plans and actions. And they wanted to know from you, what are the mechanisms where they can participate meaningfully and how can they be included in these mechanisms? So over to you, Jennifer.
Yeah, probably the shortest answer that I can give is please chat your email address at the chat box and let's collaborate. I work closely with the National Council on Disability Affairs, and at the same time, currently I am the convener of the Philippine Coalition on the UNCRPD, and we also have the program, the Inclunacion, Inclusive Nation. So probably we can, feature them, and they can, with this platform, they can share their thoughts, their proposal, their pleas, and at the same time, we can help them advocate if what are their fields of expertise, if what they wanted the government to contribute to them. And at the same time, since I'm also a woman with disability, so I would be very glad to help them in any way that I can do, and in my personal capacity. So I'm going to chat my email address at the same time in the chat box, and let's collaborate. Please tell them to connect with me and let them know my mobile number, and I'll make sure I'll connect with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, so much for sharing your contact details as well. That would be great. So I can see one hand up. Naila, did you have a question? I saw your hand up before, but I have Yosa who has their hand up right now.
Just accidentally. Sorry.
Oh, accidentally. Oh, it's okay. So Yosa, I'll give you the floor to you to ask your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Mika. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So actually, I don't want to make a question or clarifications. So first of all, sorry for my screen. I cannot use my camera. Okay, so I just want to inform about ADF research result in 2023. So actually, we have some recommendation as well. So can you please, Wika, to share the presentation, just 3 slides. So this is important for us. I mean, the panelists are giving some issues that will be enrich our research results. So, Wika, can you?
Can we have the session after the Q&A, Kak Yosa? I mean, like, we will have your special question, specific session after this. Thank you, Kak.
Okay. So I will move to Mika again. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Yosa. Thank you so much. I'll call on any last comments or questions. Okay, so if there are no questions or comments, I will hand it over to VK, who's our MC for the afternoon. Thank you so much to our panelists for sharing their views. It's definitely been informative, hearing from Philippines, Myanmar and Indonesia. So thank you so much, Jennifer, Nanda and Maria, for joining us this afternoon and providing us with the presentations. And we appreciate your time that you've taken out to share your experiences with all of us. Over to you, VK.
Okay. Thank you so much, Menka, for your facilitation. It was very informative, and we very appreciate the speakers to give complete information regarding the inclusive policy on climate change in their respective country. So now we will try to wrap up the discussion today with our researcher on the policy study, social inclusion and disability rights on climate change in Southeast Asian countries. So the session will be presented by Yusa Nainggolan as our main researcher. Please, Mas Yusa, the time is yours. You have 5 to 10 minutes to present the wrap-up and key findings and important notes from this afternoon discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Vika. So, see again, everybody. So my name is Yusa Nainggolan, and I'm a researcher for the ADF Climate Change and Social Inclusion. We conducted our research on 2023, and I will like a refresh of ADF Social Inclusion research on climate change, and giving some feedbacks of from the resource person today. So do you mind, Rika, to show our my presentation?
Okay, wait a minute, Mas Yusa.
Yes, of course. So while Vika will show the presentation, I will explain about some pointers and recommendation of ADF research on social inclusion and climate change. There are 7 pointers and recommendations, like in number 1. Maybe next slide, Vika. So for number 1, member states should develop climate change protection and adaptation plan that are inclusive. Second, advocacy by persons with disability and funding with inclusive principles. Third, challenges of grassroots organization. Number 4, involving diverse disability community. 5, the importance of evidence and database on disaster issues. And number 6, access of information on climate change for diverse disability. And the last, supporting countries where citizens face restriction on their freedom of assembly and expression or human rights issues. So if you see in the recommendation and pointers from the ADF research, we don't mention about the women with disabilities or the indigenous people and women with disability. So that's why today panelists' explanation is very important to enrich our research. For example, for Mr. Jennifer Garcia from Philippines, he focuses on the gender inclusive climate change policies and policies specifically for women with disabilities in the Philippines. So there are some highlight points that are more strengthening our the ADF research result and recommendation. She make like a list of gender inclusive climate change policy and policies for women with disabilities in Philippines, and she also explained it a critical hurdle in implementing inclusive climate change policies. There are some issues of the critical hard list. And the third, the importance of collaboration among government OPDs and stakeholder handling climate change issue. And the last, Jennifer also explained about some of recommendation in terms of the strengthening data collection analysis, improve accessibility of climate information, increase funding for disability, inclusive climate change programs, enhance participant of women with disabilities in decision making, address cultural and gender norms. So from the Jennifer, we can see that there are some issues already put on the recommendation of the ADF research, but we don't have like to enhance participation of women with disability in decision making, address cultural and gender norms. So that's why this is very important for our research. The next slide, Wika. And from Ms. Nanda from Myanmar, she mentioned about inclusive climate change policy are urgently needed, particularly in recognizing and involving vulnerable groups who have long been excluded as active participants in policy making. So he have a detail about the climate policies should incorporate principle of inclusivity and be guided by established international frameworks. And she also reminds a gap between regional policy structures, like in Asian climate change framework, and the national level implementation of these policies in Asian countries. So the third one is very important. Of course, women with disabilities are also underrepresented in climate policy developments. This aligns with finding from Asian Executive Forum actually, which indicate that although gender representation is often included, the voice of women advocating from disabilities perspective are still really hard. So we have women voices, but when we talk about women with disability, ADF is not mentioned it specifically. And fourth, there is insufficient data on the climate vulnerabilities of persons with disabilities. And the last, to address these issues, Ms. Nanda said that it's crucial to highlight and scale up good practices, identify opportunity for more inclusive action, and recognize the critical role of Asian cooperation in driving change. So the next slide, from the Ibu Maria Un, Ms. Maria from Indonesia. So this is also a very crucial because we're not talking about in ADF research, we're not specifically talking about women with disability in the indigenous peoples, indigenous people groups. So she provided an important input to ADF on importances of voicing indigenous women issues in the local context on climate change. She mentioned about the situation of indigenous women with disability in the local areas in south of Sulawesi. This is very crucial and I think very contribute for our research because we talk about the local areas. The second, as you mentioned, the presentation illustrates how indigenous women contribute to the livelihood sectors. Then the number third, persons with disability, especially indigenous women with disabilities, are among the groups excluded from the meaningful participation in natural resource management. The next slide, please, Enrique. So number five, she said that ensure meaningful participation of indigenous people in climate change policy-making policies and programs should guarantee their access to economic, environmental, and other development initiatives, including involvement in village planning and development discussion for persons with disabilities. And the sixth, again, from Indonesia, Ibu Maria said about conducting data collection. This is the same as Nanda and Jennifer talking about data collection. And the last about emphasize the importance of involving local government in addressing climate change. The last slide, please, Vika. So for the summary overall, the presentation by the outstanding panelists greatly enriched the research conducted by ADF. In particular, they emphasized the importance of the involvement of women with disabilities, including those who live with indigenous communities in the formulation of inclusive climate change policies. This involvement should occur at both national and local levels. And the second summary, a key takeaway and common thread among the three parties was the importance of inclusive data collection in the context of climate change, especially as it relates to climate programs such as those addressing disaster management. And the last summary, it will be a part of our result. The importance of collaboration in the development of climate change policy underlined between the government, organization of persons with disability, and other stakeholders, with a strong emphasis on the inclusion of women with disability. So again, we have three important issues from our today panelists about the involvement of women with disabilities, inclusive data collection in terms of the climate change, and the last, the importance of collaboration between the government OPDs and stakeholders. So this is very amazing explanation from the panelists. Thank you for Ms. Nandar, Ibu Maria, and Jennifer for all the explanation. Very important for our research result and our thank you so much. And I will give to Wika again.
Yosa, can I have a bit additional input to you?
Sure. Thank you, Ibu Malani.
Yeah, so I just write in the chat box as well. So I would like to make, maybe we do not specifically mention about the financings or fundraisings on funding, yeah, like more about the financings, whether it is coming from the governments or even from the related CSO or any sectors who are working with the climate change. So I think we have to mention about the ensuring financing for involvement of persons with disabilities, especially women with disability, in the process of the works of the climate change in any part of the climate change. Whatever we would like to say about the climate change, including the loss and damage, anything related to that, when we come into talking about the inclusions, there should be a number when you talk about the inclusion, means financing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ibu Maulani, for your input and clarification. We will put on our research report. So giving back to Wika.
Okay, thank you very much, Kayosa, for your elaboration and then the wrap up from this afternoon discussion. Okay, before we conclude the discussion, we still have about 6 minutes. So of your inputs to be discussed or something missed in this afternoon discussion, maybe somebody from this platform or also the speakers who are missing some points would like to add some things that important to be discussed further in ADF discussion. Please convey your thoughts or ideas.
Hello.
Okay. Please
Yeah.
mention your name.
I am Mirna Dominguez from Women's Legal and Human Rights Bureau. I would like to. There is one participant in our capacity building. She is deaf, no? And one of the problem during rescue operations, they cannot hear the warning signal because they are deaf. So it's very hard for them to know whether it is important, it is already time for them to evacuate or not. And one thing that she did is to put some indicators in the houses in their village. What she did was to put some indicators in the houses of persons with disability for the rescuers able to identify where are the persons with disability. That should be good, first, But what she experienced was she was reprimanded by the authority, and those signs were taken off. So that's one of the problem. So what's the better approach for persons with disability to be identified immediately during rescue operations if that kind of action is not permitted?
Okay, because we don't have any discussion on the humanitarian action, I would like to offer the speakers, if you would like to address this issue, please come forward or turn on your microphone, or anybody else from the IDF representative, because it's important, as Ibu Maulani said, that the humanitarian action after the earthquake in Myanmar and Thailand was happened is very important to protect and identify the persons with disabilities, including making indicators who is the most risky groups of persons with disabilities to be helped at that situation.
Yes, on behalf of Yamati, I would like to explain the situation. Currently, our country has a lot of positive equity crisis in the middle part of Myanmar, especially for persons with disabilities. We do the humanitarian response according to the RGA, Rapid Gender Assessment. In that rapid gender assessment, we do the classification of disability to high according to Washington Group question. Washington Group suspect, and also we identify the needs and barriers of first kind of disability with the questionnaire the various assessment. Check barrier to assessment, the and then distributing and also that's our religious services. So currently we try to include all types of persons with disability in the humanitarian response, but very limited participation to reach out to person with disability because of the numerator capability on the disability friendly question and also their interpretation. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nandar, for your inputs and also recommendation. I would like also to offer to Yosa. Ms. Yosa, would you like to have any additional follow-up regarding the discussion on the humanitarian assistance or action in the climate change issues? Because maybe we can make a follow-up action plan on that matter. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for opportunity to giving some issues in terms of the follow-up. So actually, we should have like socialization or dissemination programs in terms of to share ADF result research. So we already enrich our research with the women with disabilities issues like today. So I think that we need to highlight about we when we talk about climate change, we not talk about the women and we not talk about the participation of the person with disability, but we also have like the integrate like the women with disabilities in the local areas like the indigenous people. Yeah, so this is very important like connection issues between the women and person with disability. Like I said before, the gender issue already highlight, but for the women with disability, is still less information for everybody. So that's why this is important. And we need to socialize about this issue, and we hope that all government in Southeast Asia have the policies ultimately about the participation of women with disability. So that's all for our follow-up for our research report next Miko.
Okay, thank you, Kayosa, for that response. Now, before we conclude to the closing, I would like to thank everyone from the speakers, Ms. Jennifer, Ms. Nandar, Ms. Maria Un, and also our facilitator today, Ms. Menka, for representing your presentations, your experience and information that was valuable, and also for the great fruitful discussion was facilitated by Ms. Menka. Thank you very much. I also thank everyone who spared their time to paying attention and then participate in this discussion today, this afternoon. So this is a series of ADF discussion. We will have another two series that will be held on May and June. So the second discussion will be entitled the Disability Caucus Acknowledgement in the COP30 that will be held on 18 June. 18 May. It will be held on 18 on the COP30. So about the two public discussions to platform. So if you would like to engage and also participate again in the other public discussion, we welcome you very happily. So thank you so much for today. This is stream. Okay, this is stream on the YouTube channel. If you'd like to rewatch or re-listening this, you can open the ASEAN Disability Forum YouTube channel. Before conclude and closing the session, let's take a photo together. So I invite to open the camera if it's possible, as our documentation. So I will give a cue from 1 to 3 to make a group photo together. Okay. Yep. Okay, wait for a moment. Somebody's maybe need more time to open the camera. So I'll give more minutes to you for prepare. Is it convenient for you to open the camera? I hope you can open your camera. Okay. Okay, let's make a first round. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Another, take a picture. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So this is a wrap up, and thank you very much. I'm closing this session today. So see you again until next month.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Have a
very
good
much.
day.
Congratulations, India. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, bye.
See you again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you. Thank you. Bulan yang tapi kalau yang tadi pasang di YouTube bisa ya? Maksudnya itu belum di full screen tuh waktu di YouTube. Oh, gitu.
Karena ini juga kan kalau share screen tuh kalau PPT kan dia ada yang biasa sama yang presentasi lah.
Gue ini dulu ya. Lama banget deh. Ini gampangan Zoom kayaknya ya. Oke. Window. Share. Kok belum kelihatan net? Apa stop sharing dulu nih? Udah. Oh iya deh. Jalan nggak nih? Oh iya. Oke, sip. Dapat. Bisa. Thank you. Ini kan udah ada 2 buat bikin poster ya. Dari sekarang.